on planet Earth and even in the universe. There's many research happening every day. It's happening in the water, on land, and even in the air. And it should be noted that this research are actually carried out following basic scientific method. We're going to discuss about this scientific method in this class. The method include observation, asking questions, background research, hypothesis, experiment, analysis, or analyzing data conclusion. In addition, you can carry out either repetition or further research. And if it's positive, over time it becomes a theory. Note that theory further becomes law. Now let's discuss the first step, observation. Observation is what you actually notice in the natural world. For example, take a look at this picture. You actually observe that the moss in this picture look like the back of the wood. So that's an observation. In some cases, you may notice that animal is located in a particular environment. Why? That's an observation. So it's actually what you observed. Now, the next thing, take a look at this picture of this spot. You will now ask the question, why is it looking like this? Does this actually pose an advantage to this organism? Does it reduces the chances of predators seeing it? Now, these are some of the questions you start asking. This brings us to the next step, which is background research. In this stage, you actually gather existing information about the phenomenon that you actually observe and everything that you can get or every information that you can get, you gather. But in some cases, you may not be able to get this information. So you may skip this case if it's actually an invention or entirely a new discovery. The next stage is formulation of hypothesis. What is an hypothesis? It's actually a proposed explanation to an observation. Now take a look at this diagram. You may give a proposed explanation to this observation that moths with this kind of wings are more or less likely to be preyed upon by moths with skin that is visible. This explanation that you actually give is because of the fact that you are seeing these moths less. That means the predator will actually not see it well because of the way they are mimicking the bark of the tree. So this proposed explanation to your observation is what we call hypothesis. Stage 5 is experiment. In this stage, you design and conduct experiment to test that proposed explanation to the um, observation that you made, or you are actually testing for the hypothesis anyway, if the hypothesis is correct or not. Let's just go back to the diagram. You realize that you actually made a proposed explanation that this having the color of the bark of the tree made them to survive, have a higher chance of survival. You can set up an experiment to test this hypothesis if it's actually correct or not. So this is another step. If the experiment is not working, you have to go back to the hypothesis stage. Take a look at the chart being displayed on the board. You have to on the screen. You have to go back to the hypothesis stage. However, if it is actually working, you have to analyze this data. In data analysis, you organize and interpret the data you got during the experiment, and this data can usually be represented either in graph, table, and other charts. In conclusion, you then report whether the data actually supported or refutes your hypothesis. You then report or communicate your findings. Now, note that either you replicate or you carry out further research. Now, let's discuss this. If the hypothesis is rejected, the scientist may form a new hypothesis and repeat the process. Set up an experiment, another experiment, following different methodology, and repeat this process. However, if this hypothesis is supported by the data, you still need to carry out further research. This is to ensure that the first one was not an error, because any scientific process or procedure must or can always be replicated by any scientist to get the same result. So you must conduct further research to ascertain that your finding is valid and accurate. After repeated experimentation over time and it has been proven to be very true beyond doubt, this can now be called a theory. And over time, theory can further be tested and it can become a principle or law. This is the end of the lecture. Please subscribe to support this channel. Thank you for watching.